Hatep and Ma'at, bringing you truth. I'm Afrakan. Welcome. If this is your first time here, I want to welcome you to our channel. This is High Tops and Heels. We're a creative communications agency and an entity or cooperative of Tehuti Ma'at, which is a revolutionary instrument community organization. So welcome. Today, welcome back, if you've been here before, today is going to be a little bit different. For those who have been here before, I actually feel strongly in my spirit that I need to share the entire reading for today. So typically what I normally do is the entire reading is a militia member exclusive. So if you're a member of the Tehuti Ma'at militia, you usually get the entire reading as an exclusive artifact, and I'll just do the first 3 cards. But this time, because August is full of so much fire, it's not even funny. I think that y'all are really going to appreciate this. So yeah, if for anyone who's tuning in live, please feel free to engage in the chat in whatever way you feel called to. And if you are catching back the replay, or this is just going to be something great that you'll probably just tune back into throughout this moon cycle, because I'm telling you, August is so fiery and just like jam-packed with so much like transmissions that, yeah, you're going to find this very useful, I imagine, especially for those who align with this and who are here, because I know that this work really aligns with warrior spirits. So yes, I'm just aligning everything right now to show you the full reading. I'm also just opening the way with a little bit of frankincense, myrrh, copal, and a little bit of lavender. Welcome, my love. Yes, I'm so thankful for the fire too, especially for my fellow Sekemet energies, right? Sekemet being Leo, the lioness energy. If you have Sekemet or Leo placements in your natal chart, especially with the personal planets, whether that's or if it's your rising sign, if it's your sun sign, you are definitely going to have a lot of activations and a lot of energy clearing in your favor. Remember, everything is always in your favor. That's what we have to remember, okay? So we're going to start. First and foremost, I would love for everyone to just be able to really center in yourself. That's really the definitive aspect of this Sekemet. Leo fire energy is very much about the heart space, but very much about the self-centering. Sekemet is the sun. This is solar power energy, pure, like really radiating from that sun. And we've gone through a very significant shift. That's actually, we're in the middle of it right now, because honestly, from today through to the 3rd of August, some people may be watching this after those dates pass, but that's where this major energy shift is happening, because we have a conjunction of a couple of specific spheres of energy or celestial bodies. And I'm talking about astronomy right now, not astrology. We have Uranus and Mars conjunct with the North Node as well in the constellation of Taurus, which is Api, the bull, in Medu Neter, in the Kemetic tradition, the ancient African interpretation or origin of that energy is the bull Api. And if you have any Taurus placements, Api energy in your chart as well, you're going to feel a lot of significant activations. But Uranus energy, which is Shu, the air, the atmosphere, right? The energy of change, the wind, Oya, right? If we're looking at it from the Yoruba tradition. So there's a lot of major energy shifts, and this energy this conjunction has not happened on this on this planet for us to experience this conjunction in this way in over 2,500 years. So this is major. This is beyond once in a lifetime energy. This is a major shift that's happening that's really elevating our planet. It's elevating us as individuals that make part of this ecosystem. And it's very significant right now. I'm coming to you live from Ma'at Mountain on the western coast of the magnificent continent of Africa. And we are calling in the rains. It's actually raining today, and we're calling in our rain season, which actually ushers in the storms that do follow the Middle Passage and land on the western part of the planet. They go travel west, just like the boats that took our ancestors. This is a very significant moment in terms of the energy that's conjuring here right now that is going to go over there and bring usher in the hurricane season over there. So I just want to honor and acknowledge the energies, the natural forces and energies that are present here for this reading. This reading was done in fire ritual at the top of the new moon. So the new moon for this August moon cycle began actually July 28th or 29th, depending on where you are. And then it's going to move and continue us into most of August. And at the end of August, on the 27th, we enter into a new moon cycle, which is in Ast, which is Virgo. And we'll touch on that a bit in this reading, because that's why one of the reasons why I want to share the entire reading, because at the heart of the reading is actually Ast. And I'm going to be sharing a bit of that energy because it's clear why that energy is present in the reading. So without further ado, I want you to now just prepare to come a bit out of yourself so that we can actually tap into the cards themselves and the symbols of the oracle. As always, I give the disclaimer: use your intuitive intelligence. If you come back and catch the replay, pause when you're looking at the different cards. Make sure to take note of whatever comes up for you specifically when you see the symbolism in the card, because ultimately that intuitive intelligence is the most significant essence. Like, that is literally the essence of this entire universal experience that we're having. So remember to tap into that intuitive intelligence that you have, because only you really know what nectar within you, the divine within you, is communicating to you specifically. So it's very important to take note of those things that come up for you specifically. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show the entire reading so you have that context. The only thing is, I actually don't know how to rotate this in this program, so I guess I'm gonna have to show it to you like this. Hopefully it's showing the whole thing. Okay, so the top of the reading where we begin is going to be the fire energy, that first layer. This is a pyramid reading, a Merkut reading. So Merkut just means pyramid, and at the top, that guiding principle is the fire energy. This represents Sirius, Sabu Septa, Septet. This is what they call the dog star. This is what ancestrally, specifically in this Kemetic legacy that these cards are pulling from, our origin point, the sun of our sun, our energy source. So it's the fire energy, and it's the spark. It is what electrifies, and it's the guiding principle of this entire reading for this moon cycle of August. And then it's going to come down into that second layer that has two cards, which is the emotional body, the Ka. And then it moves into, which is the air element, right? The layer that has three cards is the water energy. This moves into our emotional body, the Ka, right? So the Ba is the air, the magical mental body, the two cards. The three cards comes into the emotional body, the Ka, right? The water principle. And then we go into the earth element, Geb, the planet, material reality, okay? And that is the base of the Merkut or pyramid with the four cards there. Okay. So it's a beautiful reading. I'm really excited to share it with you because it's very clearly showing like the energy that we're entering into. And I do want you to take into consideration that this is just pure energy. It's just a reading that reveals the energy of this moon cycle and what is present. And however we choose to align with it, because whether we know it or not, whether we watch this or not, the energy is going to unfold. So even if you were to watch this after the moon cycle passed, you will see how these energies were activated in your own life. But the way that we align with the energy, the way that we embody the energy depends on our choices and where we are in our particular journey. So take that into consideration, right? This isn't future telling. This is more so just, it's from an eternal context, right? It's outside of space and time, but it's really rooted in pulling in what is the essence of the energies that are present for us, that are part of us, that are reflective of us on this planet, in this experience we're having in life right now, right? I like to give that clarity because some people come in with a different narrative and interpretation of what it is that we're doing with the cards. The oracle is just a tool that we're using to support us, especially in this time that can be very turbulent because it's bringing in a lot of change, a lot of shifts. We're being called to rise into our power. We're being called and ushered, which we've been for a while. I've been sharing this for a couple of different moon cycles, but now it's coming into a more material sense. When we talk about Api or Taurus, that is an earth sign. It is a very material experience. It's now come down to earth. So the same way we saw in the reading, it starts with that spark of the fire, comes into the air. We start thinking about it. We start knowing it. We start sensing it, feeling it emotionally. And then it starts to materialize and we see it in our lives. And that's where we're at right now, where this message that has been coming from up here, from the spiritual dimensions that are a bit unseen, and then coming into this material spiritual reality that we're experiencing. And it's like, oh shit, right? Because this could literally be earthquakes. It could be eruptions, all kinds of different things. So it's a very powerful energy that's now like gonna be like tangible. So take that into consideration as well. All right. Now we also have a couple of significant days that I want people to take note of for this moon cycle. We have the conjunction that I mentioned, which is bringing major shifts, as I said. And it's all about preparing us for this rebirth, which the cards are going to reveal. We also have the 8-8 numerological portal that opens. That's Sekemet's portal, which many people know as the Lion's Gate. Very significant energetic synchronicity there to be aware of and prepared for. And we also have the full moon that will align on August 11th into the 12th, depending on where you're located. And that is going to be in Hapi, which is Aquarius. And that's going to be a very powerful full moon as well. It's going to be a super moon. So there's a bit of a more proximity to us and how the energies and the emotions are going to be sensed in our physical experience. So also keep that in mind. And then, as I said, as the moon wanes from that fullness and into the new moon cycle, we usher in that earth energy with us, the Virgo energy that we enter into officially as the sun enters into Virgo or Ast on the 23rd of this moon cycle of this month. So, okay. The first card of the reading, this is Bennu. Bennu is the phoenix. Bennu is the original. Before the Greeks came with the idea of the phoenix, it was already it was inspired by, it was taken from the idea of Bennu. Bennu is a neteru, a force of nature that we may be familiar with as the phoenix. But I want you to go ahead and take a look at it. It's in the house of the wind, Neph. So we got that air energy as well. Because like I told you, the air is and the wind, and you think about those energies, it's very much about change, transformation, shifting, cleansing, clearing. And the phoenix is birthed from the ashes of the fire. So it must be purged, purified, cleansed. Remember, the energy is continuing from the previous moon cycle. The previous moon cycle was Sekemet energy. We're in Sekemet season, right? Leo season. Sekemet energy is very much that pure essence of fire, passion, lust, burn, clearing, healing, but from that sense of like that roaring fire, right? And that clearing, what it leaves is the ash and what comes up out of that ash, because nothing ever really ends, right? It completes one cycle, one stage, and it enters into a new. So this is the rebirth. This is the renewal of energy. Okay, so you can feel free to just kind of intuit and just take a look at the symbolism in the card. You definitely see Bennu with the egg in the mouth, which is also very significant. I'm going to speak to why the egg is there. You see the solar disc above the head. Sometimes Bennu is shown with the double plume crown of a star, and that is the crown of the north, right? Upper Kemet. Excuse me. Yeah, no, the south. The south is Upper Kemet. And that white crown represents the fertile lands that Asar ruled over. It was given to Asar by Ra, right? So we talk about the more fertility, right? The life-giving land, the regenerative land that the Nile flooded, or Hapi. Hapi is the Nile flooded. And that crown was accompanied by two specific curled feathers of Ma'at, the ostrich feather. So Ma'at representing truth and justice, just to keep it simple. So that's also an energy that's associated with Bennu. And I'm saying that because Bennu is deeply associated with Asar. Remember, Asar is the one who was killed and is resurrected, right? This is where in Christianity they get the concept of Jesus, right? The one who resurrects. And this is also why Bennu is is characterized in that same way, where you have an energy that is reborn, right? Resurrected from the ashes. Okay. So the divinatory meaning, sorry, I'm using a different program, so I'm also just like trying to figure out how to navigate it, because it's a bit different when I go directly from YouTube. But like I said, it's resurrection, and it's a resurrection of an original fire within us. There's something that's stirring within us that has been rising for a while, and it's now ready to come and take form, right? And it wants to shine. It needs to rise. We have to allow it to rise. And what it requires is, this renewal of energy requires a shedding, right? We have to let go of the old, the heavy, the outworn, what we do not need anymore, what's been holding us back, what's been limiting us, so that we can feel free as a bird, but not just any bird. We're talking about the bird born out of the ashes of the fire. And remember, when you have the ashes of the fire, what you're left with is that like gray, white, reflective energy, which scientifically speaking, in Western English terms is potassium, right? There's a lot of deep symbolism within that. And that's the beauty of this type of powerful alchemical symbolism, this ancestral sacred symbolism, is there's a lot of things that you don't really need to say, because depending on where people's frequency are and what they're privy to because of their own inner work and their own mission and purpose in this life, they will be able to tap into certain levels of this information, of this sacred wisdom. So I will leave it at that. But what I will talk about is the egg that's in his mouth. Now, Asar, the resurrected one, right, which is associated with Orion, which is also rising. Remember, I mentioned in the last reading that we had the conjunction of the sun and Sirius, right? The star, Sabu Septa. And I told you that's our origin point. Ancestrally, we've seen that, and to this day, the Dogon carry that tradition from Kemet and express that this is the source energy. This is you know, speaking in symbolic terms, it's the sun of our sun, essentially. Now, that energy aligned with the sun during the last moon cycle, but it began to rise. And now we're going to begin to see at night the rise of Asar and Ast, right? Which is what these mythologies and this cosmology that we have ancestrally is based on. It is based on the science of astronomy. It is literally the movement of the celestial bodies in the cosmos and what they represent and how that impacts us on Earth. So it is the merger of multiple sciences, because we had a holistic practice, a holistic science. It wasn't in this way where in the Eurocentric paradigm that is collapsing, that is completing its cycle. It likes to split these things. So we see astrology and astronomy as two different things, but we're looking at it today scientifically through the spiritual science as one whole. And Orion's belt is literally what the three great Merkuts or pyramids are aligned with, right? And this rising means we're going to start seeing it in the night sky. So I want you to also, tap into that, because that's really what it's all about, right? It's like, what is it really that we're talking about? Yes, it's energy we sense and feel, but it's also very real. And I think because this energy is really lifting that Api energy, that Taurus, we're also moving into Virgo, earth energies. There's something about the material, tangible aspect of it that we need to connect with. We need to see it. We need to know what it is that we're talking about that is usually seen in this very etheric way. We need to really ground it in reality, in our physical experience. So I encourage you to actually look for Ast, for Sirius, in the sky. Look for Asar's belt in the sky in the evening, because it is rising. And that's what opens up what we call that 8-8 Sekemet portal, that lion's gate. That's what it represents, because it's a pure fire energy that is going to come through and is highly activating us right now. We're probably all sensing it right now. I'm definitely sensing it because of my particular placements. If you have any of these energies in your chart, in your natal chart when you were born, you're definitely feeling it. But all of us are feeling it, because in general, like I said, this is the sun energy. This is a solar powered planet. So everyone is feeling it. And I'm talking about overall, all the creatures are feeling it. The planet Geb is feeling it. We are rising into a higher frequency, period. Everything that cannot meet that frequency is about to collapse and shed. And it's going to happen swiftly, like in the blink of an eye, right? In the context of time, depending on where you're at with that. But like it's happening. It's happening right now. And it's very powerful to be conscious of it. So now we're moving into the emotional energy, the air energy, the mental energy. And as I said, there's 2 cards on that placement. And I think it's reversing it. So I'm going to go first into the second card, which is specifically the energy that is continuing to influence our thoughts and ideas, our mental capacity right now, which is Rananet. Now, Rananet represents, so you also want to see the numerology. I didn't mention 5 was the numerology of the first card, and 5 really represents power. It's really, but it's almost through struggle, which is why I was expressing like the shedding that has to happen. So it's not that it just happens. You kind of have to push through something, some type of internal barrier, some type of acknowledgement, some type of, realization and breakthrough that has to occur in order for that, right? The purging has to happen. The fire has to burn everything into ash before the phoenix rises out of that, right? To have that pure alchemical chemistry, right, to take place, for that birthing to take place, that transformation, that transmutation has to occur. So everything has to burn. So depending on where you're at, that's going to feel differently for everyone, right? Now, as I said, this energy that's now influencing us right now, currently, that's continuing from the previous cycle, and mainly I'm talking in the mental dimension, right? In the Ba, our astral body, is Rananet. There's an abundance, right? Because Rananet is also good fortune. It is abundance. It is overflow, right? And there's something from this previous cycle that mentally has nourished us. And we're meant to continue that into this cycle because it's part of what fuels the fire. Whatever that clarity is mentally, that realization that we've had from this previous cycle, right? Whatever we experienced in July, you can recollect for yourself. That's what continues on. And Renenet represents that lactation energy, right? She is the two breasts. You see the two cups overflowing. They represent the breast because she's one of the energies that aligns with and remember, these are just, symbolic, right? It's a feminine energy, so it means it's receptive. It's not an actual deity. I always have to emphasize that. These are not deities or anything outside of ourselves. They're energies that are all throughout, but they specifically define specific aspects, right? Because they're talking about science. So we're talking about energetically when the child is born, that lactation, right? That nourishment that's happening in that process. That's what this energetically represents. It's also two, so it's representative of the twin energy. It's another air energy. It's in the house of Neph, which is the house of the wind, which is properly placed, obviously, because it's also in the air element of the reading. Now, this is mental abundance. This is a positive thought form, thought stream, right? This is what wants you to be what you will be, right? All the clarity you got in terms of your needs and what you actually want to create for yourself that came from the last cycle, that positive stream of energy that shows you that you can create that for yourself. That's what we're talking about here. This is nourishment of the subtle bodies. Okay, so I want to speak on that because while she also represents wealth, we're also speaking about this from that subtle dimension. And that subtle dimension is the most profound that we have to really begin to tune ourselves to because there's so much distraction that's going to keep happening, right? Because we move deeper into the chaos in order to create that rebirth. So the things that are starting to purge are the things that, like I said, they're outworn. They're too dense. They're too heavy, right? That evil, that like all the things that the light begins to shine on it. It begins to purge and clear out. But there's an aspect of how that happens subtly that can be overridden sometimes by the noise and the chaos of all the distractions and all the things that begin to happen simultaneously, right? So there's something about just tuning into that subtle energy, right? The frequencies you can't see, right? We're all on these devices, knowing they're activated through Wi-Fi. We know there are constantly radio waves. Depending on where you are on the planet, you might be bombarded with a lot of low frequency energy that's in that subtle field that you don't see. But you do sense them. You do feel them. They impact your energy. They can make you feel depressed. They can make you, they can just energetically impact your body in so many ways and your mind in particular. But these are all things to take into consideration because this is, I feel, the most potent battlefield because it impacts all others. It's like pouring water on your head. You know it's going to go down to your feet. So again, like the energies start at top and then they move themselves down. And I do think it's very important to go to that source, which is that subtle field. So that nourishment of the subtle energy. So doing whatever practices that allow you to really sense and tap into your energetic sovereignty and positive high frequencies. Okay. Now, the energy that we're moving into mentally and that is going to continue moving us forward is actually Shishat. Okay. And it's written here, Shishata. Now, this particular deck, like, there's so many different energy, like vibrational interpretations of how to pronunciate the Meduneter, which is what we know as the hieroglyphs from the Greek word. But the Meduneter is a symbolic language. Now, even when it's interpreted the vowels are sacred, so they weren't actually written. But I noticed that there's some type of like inclination to use a lot of ease when people try to interpret the Medu Neter. So sometimes, like, I go with my intuitive intelligence, like I told you, like just really being tapped in and knowing like everything that we're experiencing right now, there's a serious rebirth and a knowing of our previous life experiences. And for me personally, because of my calling, my positioning, and what I have come to do, there's something intuitive that I really have to tap into around the language and interpretation, while I still honor the science and the interpretations that people who are doing serious scholarship around this work are doing. There's just a certain aspect to it that I notice, like, yeah. So I go with the vibration of Shishat. But there are many interpretations of all these vibrations. It's in the family of Pet, which is the heavens, right? So still kind of in that ear realm. The number is 7, and she has that 7-pointed or 7-leafed, right? Because some people see it as a star. So you could think of it as Sirius, but some people also see it as a leaf, right? With 7 leaves, seven leaves on that. And it's representative of the number 7 being that divine frequency, and how the divine frequency is embodied on the planet, whether we look at the 7 harmonic tones or the 7 most common energy centers that people know as the chakras, or the Aritu in Medu Neter. But there are many more energy fields even on the body. Just putting that out there. But the 7 core elements, right? So the number 7 is very significant on a couple of different notes. The 7 colors in the light spectrum, right? So that being said, you can just symbolically look at what it means. I usually, when the symbolism is kind of like lacking color, sometimes that bothers me a bit, to be honest with you. But, just take that with a grain of salt, I guess. But I will tell you what this card represents. Shishat is one of the consorts of Tehuti, right? Divine wisdom, divine intelligence, but specifically the aspect of literature and writing. So that's what this energy specifically represents. So we're coming into an energy where mentally the best thing we can do, activate the writing. Really take the things out of your minds and get them on paper. Create the plan, because Shishat is the builder. So Tehuti has the consort of Ma'at, but he also has another consort of Shishat. And she is the writer. She more takes that form. Whereas Ma'at is more of that cosmic principle of balance, justice, symmetry, wholeness, synthesis, right? That emanates and allows that universal law to have meaning, right? But Shishat is more so like a grounding element of like how that knowledge and intelligence is brought forward and how we witness it, which is writing, right? Writing your thoughts, writing your ideas, writing your plans, right? Written expressions, even creative expressions. But Shishat is about building and creating and the materializing of your plans, the construction of plans for future success, right? You have to get that out, right? So there's a lot of fire energies, a lot of inspiration, a lot of creative energy. Like I said, it's that solar energy, which is all about creation. But how do we prepare for that, right? How do we make sure that we guide that? How do we do our part? How do we activate and embody that energy? This is how the energy is guiding us from that mental plane. It's saying for us to move into that space so that we can link our energies to a higher plan, to a higher force, a higher power, because us as individuals, we're just a grain of sand on the beach, a drop of water in the rain. We are one thread in the divine web, the divine tapestry of that is woven, right? And we will talk about that because the next card is actually Neith, who is the weaver, right? And we have to be aware that we are a part of everything else. And when we're making our plans and we're constructing our plans, there's a surrender to that and allowing ourselves to move through that process from a more of a heart space, which is what last energy was moving us through, and what Sekemet energy, this Leo energy that we're in right now, right? The Lion's Gate is about activating the heart, activating the heart. And I want to say hi to Nayasha and Simone, who are live with us in the chat. Blessings, welcome, and thank you for being here. Definitely tune in once it uploads into the replay and you can catch up on the reading. But like I said, I'm actually doing the full reading this time publicly, because I feel too very strongly, and because August is really jam-packed. There's a lot happening right now. Energetically, it's a very, very powerful time we're in. Like, this is very, like, the fact that we are here is so significant right now. So I just want to acknowledge and honor that. Now, usually that's where I stop for the public reading. I'm going to go in another layer, 2 more layers. We're going to complete the reading right now. So we're going into now the emotional plane. This is how we sense this energy, how we feel it, how it impacts our emotions. And the first card on this level is Neith, which is what I mentioned earlier, the great grandmother energy. Now, remember, these are just pure energies. And when I say great grandmother, it's like the umbilical cord. Think about the connection point. The umbilical cord, the egg of the person, the physical being that you became was in your grandmother's womb when your mother was in your grandmother's womb, right? And the transfer of energy comes through that umbilical cord. This is what energetically we're referring to when we're talking about this energy. These are very profound symbols. Like, this is very deep, and we have to begin to deepen our connection with ourselves through these ancestral principles. Okay, so Neith is also seen as the weaver. We see she has the whittle over her head, which the weavers wrap the thread around. That's what that represents. A lot of times you can also see it represented as the spider, right? The ultimate weaver that weaves a thread that looks so delicate and gentle, but stronger than steel. Okay, so the web, the connections, right? You can see that with the symbolism. And like I said, you can always pause it. It's in Pet, another heavenly energy. So family of heaven, still air, but in a less, frantic sense, right? It's not the wind. It's just kind of the cosmos, right? The heavens. So there's something beyond this particular atmosphere. It's more cosmic. And you can see whatever comes up for you energetically. The 6 is a nurturing energy. It's that mothering energy. As I said, this is the great grandmother energy. But Neith is also representing our emotional connections that are continuing to align, especially the connections we were making in the previous cycle. Feelings and emotions that have been coming up based on different connections and relationships that we have. So you want to definitely take into account, like, what are the different relationships and connections that have been coming up? What are the relationships and connections that you are being called to shed, that you're seeing are not too heavy, don't fit where you're going, aren't aligning anymore, And sometimes that can hurt. Like I said, the fire might burn in a different way for different people, right? Depending on what it is that you are going through and what you're sensing and what you're feeling and where you're directing your life. Where Netta, the divine that we are, is directing your life in the grand totality of everything. So Neith is also aligning a support now, right? Through these emotional connections that we've been aware of, that we've been becoming aware of, and the impact that they have on us and whatever clarity that we're getting about that. Now, the divinatory meaning of this card, right? Like I said, it's a weaver, but it's also like the perfect time, right? To make contacts and connections, integration, right? Bringing things together, taking time to process our feelings and emotions and how these things are impacting us. It's also creativity, right? Because anytime you're dealing with a mothering energy, it is a creative energy, right? It is a nurturing energy. But this is particularly nurturing us through connection with others, right? So you also may want to look at your relationship and your connection to your mother and your grandmother. And if your grandmother or your mother has transitioned, still those spirits, because that ultimately is the essence that we continue through. It is their journey and their choices that have made up who we are. And that is very significant for us to think about in our journey, because a lot of times as we try to escape out, we avoid what is within, and what is within is our DNA, is our blood, is our genetic connection to the ones who created us, the ones who came before us. So there is an aspect of the ancestral and the bloodline lineage that we have to contend with in a very deep way emotionally right now, because a lot of the things that are clearing, what I mentioned earlier was these energies that are happening. Like I said, this alignment that we're in right now, this conjunction, is so powerful. It hasn't happened in over 2,000 years. It's so powerful that it's beyond time. It's not even about this moment. There are things we're clearing from our soul's entire signature and continuum, previous lives, future lives. Like, it's just like, it's beyond time. It's a very, very powerful shifting that's happening right now. So a lot of the things that we sense, if you feel things that aren't really making sense with where you are right now, really deepen yourself into meditation. Really trust what's coming up for you in your dreams right now, how you're being shown, what you're actually transmuting, because there could be things from your lineage, from your ancestral line, from previous lives, right? Interdimensional things that you're processing through your life and your body right now that you want to be aware of, especially when we're talking about emotions and sensitivity, because we sense things in so many ways. And sometimes if we allow ourselves to just like submerge in the emotions, we can really become blinded emotionally. And this right now, which is why we have so much powerful mental energy that's really trying to lift us out of that, because we're moving into the age of Hapi, Aquarius being an air energy, right? So we're moving more into a mental stability, right? It's also fixed. But we're moving out of Pisces, Hatmi Hit, which is water, but like a lot of water, a lot of emotions, a lot taking this. And it's like, get out your feelings. Just get out your feelings. Like, yes, honor your feelings, but move to those higher octave feelings, those intuitive senses, right? Not just whatever can trigger you. And, you know, which is also why it's important to like go through that purging and move into higher frequencies, because if you don't do it, nature is going to do it. You're going to be moved. It's like move or get moved. That's how this energy is going to be. And don't say you weren't warned, because a lot of times we don't like to listen to ourselves. That's the problem. We don't want to listen to how nature is speaking to us through ourselves, because we're constantly coming out of ourselves and running away from ourselves. And this is not the time for that. If you do that right now, you're going to get floored. Mark my words. If you haven't already gotten slapped down. All right. So, all right. Now we're moving into the center of the reading. We're still in that emotional body, the emotional energy, and we're in the center. So this card that's literally in the center that connects the earth and the mental realm, right? The earth and the air within the water. This card is the connection point between our earthly and spiritual lives. So it is something very significant. I also find it very significant because it's Ast. And like I said, we're moving into Ast, Virgo. And I'm going to talk a bit about the symbolism of Ast and what Ast represents for a while. Now, Ast is in the family of Ra, because in the mythology, in the cosmology, it is Ra, the solar energy, that births these more terrestrial energies and forces of nature that we see as the mothering energy, the fathering energy, right? The things that are very much about this physical experience: life, regeneration, death, decay, because Ra also births, and the siblings of Ast and Asar are also Set and Nebetet, which are principles of death and decay, mourning and deception, and all of those what we perceive as negative things, or we characterize as negative things. But they all are necessary in order for this solar system to exist. That's what the symbolism represents. We can look at that through Western science and see, okay, we're in a solar system, things are in order, da 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 da. You got the different planets, different spheres of energy. That's ultimately what it is. And I think because the way that the Kemetic science, the African science, is corrupted and even brought back to us from a Eurocentric falsification of it, and just inability to really grasp what is actually being symbolized, because some people really aren't operating at a high enough frequency and a deep enough embodiment and connection to nature to be able to really comprehend what these energies are referring to. So that being said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the mythology, because this is really significant. The guiding principle, every other card is based on that phoenix Bennu energy, right? So I'm going to use Bennu moving forward, Bennu being the phoenix. I told y'all that Bennu is connected to Asar, the resurrection energy, right? The great green energy, Geb. And what I hadn't mentioned before was about that egg, because the egg is very significant, and it's the connection point of what I'm talking about right now with Ast. Because think about it, the feminine energy is what has the eggs, right? We have the eggs in our ovaries. The masculine energy has the fertilization, but the egg is more so the seed, right? Because the egg holds the potential. It must be fertilized by that active energy. It is receptive. It's waiting for it, right? It's magnetic. It's attracting it in. But the sperm must navigate to get there. It must be the strongest one, the fastest one, the best one to get to that egg to fertilize it. So these are what we're talking about energetically. Even though the mythology is about a mother, father, and child being born from that, right? There's a drama to it. It's just to illustrate what we're talking about energetically, which is masculine and feminine energy coming together, and the drama of how that unfolds and what that births, which is victory, which is creative life. It is the cycles of life that it represents. And it shows the necessity of what we perceive as conflict, right? These complementary energies. You cannot have light without darkness. You cannot have up without down. You cannot have male without female, right? So it's the divine symmetry and complementarity of nature that is being expressed through the cosmology. So when we look at the story of Ast and Asar, they were the first farmers and gardeners, but they were also the first rulers of the land, because they brought the science and the knowledge that was lost at a point of how to cultivate the land, to sow seeds, and to grow food. Because ultimately, that's what a leader must do. If you are going to lead people, you must feed them. You must provide them their needs. Because what else makes you worthy of being in a position to lead them, right? So they were the leaders. Some people say king and queen. Those are Eurocentric like ideas as well, but we can use that just to like present the story. So you have the king and queen. Like I said, they also had the siblings of Nebetet and Set, which are principles of death and decay, more of those negative principles. Now, Set, the brother of Asar, was jealous of his brother because Ra gave him, remember I told you he had the white crown representing the fertile land, and Set was giving the desert land, the land that wasn't fertile and didn't grow food. So there was this bitterness and resentment, because remember, that's just the energy of ego. It's the energy of separation. It's the energy of like all things that we perceive as evil and negative and wicked. So he was jealous of his brother. He goes and kills his brother, cuts his body into pieces, spreads them, takes authority and position to be the leader, right? Sound familiar? Lion King. So many different stories are take from this original African ancestral drama. Even Star Wars, like there's so many. Now, Nebetet, who's Set's wife and Ast's sister, best friend, whatever, they put the pieces together of the body. Ast has to fashion the phallus, right? The hinenum, as we would call it, the erection, and puts it on, and her body takes flight over him in a symbolic gesture of the bird, a body of a bird, maybe Bennu, right? And she experiences the immaculate conception, where she is now impregnated by the seed of the soul of a Sar that is resurrected through her words of power, through the vibration and her love for him, her belief in him. He rises, impregnates her, and she becomes pregnant and gives birth to their son Heru. The original Trinity, mother, father, child. It is the Holy Family. That is our original story, not what they've taken and twisted and bastardized and gave back to us through Christianity or Islam or any of these Western religions, Judaism, whatever it may be. Now, that's significant because that's what Ast energy is. Now, Ast, like I said, is also Septet or Sirius. So we're talking about an energy that is multi-layered. In this context, we're talking about Ast as a terrestrial energy, a mothering energy, right? Because in the card, she's literally breastfeeding the child. It's also a 5 energy, which is what Bennu was a 5. And I told you that 5 represents power, but it's through challenge, struggle at times. It's not just, it's never easy to just get there. You got to like have that breakthrough. You got to move through something. And remember the triumph of her becoming a mother and having that immaculate conception, even though they didn't consecrate their marriage while he was alive, they didn't have a child. Because they interpret that as the virgin birth, that's why you get Virgo. But that idea of Virgo comes from a distorted Eurocentric sense of, what do they call that? Like Kantianism, right? Which Immanuel Kant was a European philosopher. And this idea of virtue and vice. So they create this like, oh, pure essence, virgin, like, right? And then they create this Jezebel, like evil energy, when in reality, things are whole, right? And you have both, right? So sometimes we can beat ourselves up because we have this shadow side of us that we try to suppress when we really just have to contend with it, look at why we're doing those things and truly, genuinely heal them so we can transmute that energy, learn from it, and operate in a more whole state where we honor the fullness of who we are. And we don't just look for love and light. We also have to look at the darkness and we have to look at the hate because that is just as real. And the love and light would not exist without that other side. So that's why I don't like to use that Virgo energy because it's definitely coming from that space, right? The Virgin Mary and Virgo, the Virgin Mary, the Madonna. That's what Ast is. And you can also see here, they interpret it as Aset. And I had mentioned earlier that in the Meru Neter, there are different vibrational interpretations of it. I say Ast, one, because my elder, Baba Heru, as well as Queen Afua, they use Ast, right? But people always say it's interchangeable. You could say Aset. For me personally, because that's also my namesake, the name that I carry, it's my embodiment in this life. And I just always felt really strongly like, why would Ast have Set in her name? Set is literally the one that killed her husband and chopped his body into pieces. It is the gravity, it's the density, it is the ego energy. So why would we fuse that into Ast? And there may be some reason why, because I do feel that there's an aspect of Set within us all, absolutely. But I just feel like in the pure essence of what her energy represents, it would make more sense to just say Ast and not add the Aset, because we don't even have that vowel in there. So to me, it's just like, let's just give her own space, right? Give this energy its own space, because it's not an actual like thing, but it's just like, allow it to exist in its own realm, in its own sense, which is the mothering energy. Now, the divinatory meaning of it is, like I said, it's the feminine, receptive, mothering energy, the nurturing energy. We're really being called into that, particularly, I will say, because we're talking about the Black family right now. The divine feminine has to activate. We really are being called to soften our energy and to be more nurturing. And we need to really resonate and connect with the pain of our brothers, because it's only through our softening that we can allow them to feel what they need to feel in order for them to heal. And that's a very significant thing that's being lifted on the collective stage for us as a people right now. And on an individual note, you can assess that for yourself in terms of how you're being guided and what it is that you're feeling about this. Now, it's magical knowledge and protection as well, because Ast is the ultimate high priestess and the magician, right? It was her words of power, her embodiment of divine energy allowed her to be able to wield that power vibrationally to resurrect and bring her husband back to life so she could give birth to her child, right? So that's what that represents. She also protects her son as she raises him, because Set is sending all kinds of scorpion, all kinds of different antics to try to keep this child from growing up to go and avenge his father's death and take back the throne. So she's a very protective energy. That's what this energy represents. This is great power of inspiration, right? Like, think about even just the suckling, right? And when the child is dependent on the mother in that way, like what type of energy that is, because that's ultimately what we're talking about, is just energy. It's creativity, bringing life, honoring the female principle in all things, which means we have to honor the female principle within our mates, within our brothers, within our sons, and allow them to express their emotional expression, their feminine expression. We must allow that. It needs healing. It needs deep healing. And that's what this energy represents, right? And like I said, it's the connection between our earthly and our spiritual lives. So this is happening spiritually, but it's very much happening in our relationships and connections. Remember, the previous card was Neath, which was all about our connection points, right? Our emotional connections, emotional ties. Now, again, it's through the context of Bennu, shedding the old, the outworn, what is too dense, what isn't going to be able to make it through this frequency shift that we're moving into. Now, when we move forward, the energy is going into Neter Neteru. And you could just intuit for yourself what this is energetically expressing to you, but Neter Neteru is really just speaking to the divine totality, everything and nothing. It's infinite possibility and potential. Because ultimately we are creators. We are co-creators within our experience. We create our lives through our thoughts, through our choices, our actions, our behaviors, right? And that's a lot of power. And we need to wield that responsibly and stop running away from it. That's what we're being called into. We're being called into our divinity. Deeper, higher sensitivity, higher emotions, righteous emotions, right? Because not all of our feelings are valid, and we have to be able to really acknowledge that. A lot of things are coming from programming. A lot of things are coming from pain and trauma and wounds that we must heal. So we need to really tap into that sense, the higher senses of our emotional body, of our ka, of our spirit. So Neter Neteru represents the divine totality, which is Neter, right? What they tell us is God. We go to our ancient vibration of Nter, which we can interpret as nature, but it's not nature in the Eurocentric sense where we're only thinking about this physical ecosystem, planetary experience. We're talking about nature as in the fullness of the cosmos, the multiverse, not even just this universe, not just this solar system, not just this galaxy, not just, you get what I'm saying? Like, it's everything and nothing. It's just the expansiveness of everything that we perceive to be in existence. It's so grand, it's so wide. But then it's Neter and Neteru. So when they tell us, oh, our ancestors had multiple gods and goddesses, no. The Neteru, what they say and misinterpret as gods and goddesses, are not deities. They're forces of nature. So we can look at how we had a scientific language to express the many facets and aspects of divinity, of creation, of existence. So yeah, we have, just like we have different words that we use if we're talking about an atom, or we're talking about carbon, or we're talking about anything on the periodic table, you have different words to speak to these different elements of nature. Our ancestors had different words, but we were way deeper and we were looking at it in multiple dimensions and in an eternal context, not just in the material sense and what could be observed and touched and felt and probed. We were looking at what we have within us energetically. We're talking about the energy spheres of what we know to exist and what existed before existence, because some of the Neteru are primordial. They existed before this even physical existence ever existed. So that's the boundless nature of what this card is representing for where we're going emotionally, the potential of what we have to potentially access in this particular moon cycle. Because like I said, this energy is so powerful. We can tap into our infinite potential and possibilities emotionally. We can sense them. We can activate higher visions for ourselves. Excuse me. Anything can be done. That's what this card represents. There's nothing that's impossible. You need to expect the unexpected. Whatever you wanted, go higher, go further, more. Better than you can imagine. Like, that's what it is. It's to show you you have no limit. There's nothing stopping you. And those things that you see in your way, you have the perfect energy right now, because Bennu is here to bring you renewal and rebirth. Allow it to burn in the fires of this energy that is present right now, and allow yourself to be renewed and reborn in order to access your full potential. That's what this represents. Ashe? All right, so we're going to take a breath real quick, because we're on to the final phase, and I'm aware of, the fact that this is a lot to take in. Like I said, that's why I said this is just a reference. This is a raw source. You can come back to this, because this energy is going to be very felt in a very real way. It's not just going to be up here. This moon cycle, this August month is Black August. It's fire. We're going to be feeling it for real. So within the heat of the moment, you may want to reference back to this. But for now, I'm just going to take a sip of my tea. I want to allow you to take a breath. Pause if you need to process. Because we're moving into the physical world, the material expression of how this energy is going to come forward. And I'm just going to read this message here. I'm so glad that I'm hearing this divine timing. Yes, divine perfection, because that's what it is. Everything is always on time. For understanding, because I have been feeling all this energy and have not known how to process. I give thanks. Yes, I'm so glad that you were here live and to express that, because we're all going through it. We're all going through it. And all these energies that are in opposition to us, really just here to strengthen us. They want us to feel alone. But know that even that is on your side. Even that is on your side. Everything that challenges you is just here to strengthen you. And that's going to make it all worth it when you get through it. You get what I'm saying? Like, there's no pain, no gain. And a lot of times we just want to do shortcuts and easy way out and go into like getting this convenient path. And that's not the way. That's not the way. Blessing for the Omawali. I'm glad you're here. And yes, you will be able to tap back in. This is going to be an amazing resource as we move through these fires. All right, so now we're going into the earth energy. This is how we're actually, to me, this be the best part, because it's like, okay, the most obvious sense of how we're going to actually see it and experience. So the earth, the material realm, 4 cards at the base. Now, as we're moving in from the left side of the pyramid of the Merkut, it's the energy that's continuing from the previous cycle that's still having influence on us now. Now, Tehuti. First and foremost, it's another 5, right? So we had 5 in the center with us, and we had 5 at the very top with Bennu, the phoenix. Again, like I said, that's why I told you, like, you got to push through it. You're going to make it through. Trust me. You're going to make it through. Because you're here. Other people may not make it through. It's all about what you choose. So, but I'm here to encourage you, because I know you're going to make it through it. All right. So that's what I'm saying. This is a family of the moon. You see the full moon shining overhead, and that crown that I mentioned to you before with the double plumes of Ma'at, right? representing Asar, right? Because all the masculine energies and all the feminine energies, they're an extension of themselves, right? It's one energy that continues to take many forms and many expressions. Now, Tehuti being represented by the ibis bird, or the ibis bird, right? You also see the emerald stone behind him. And symbolically, you could see, you can interpret it however it intuitively comes up for you. But that full moon representing the full illumination, right? When you have that particular alignment with the sun, the moon, and the planet Earth, and then you have that full reflection of the sun on the moon, right? So we have that full illumination even in the night, which ancestrally we know as Kansu, which is another lunar masculine energy. Now, sorry, I'm seeing these bugs coming in. I gotta get this frankincense and myrrh copal popping again, because they're not gonna be over here eating me. But yes, Tehuti representing divine intelligence, cosmic wisdom, expression, connection. It's the mercurial, the Mercury energy. Okay. And like I said, you always want to intuit whatever comes up for you naturally. But the divinatory meaning for this card, right? Because this is also a card of scholarship, right? Wisdom, information, and it's continuing from before. So you want to think about what was coming up for you in July and what was the information? What wisdom did you gain from that experience? You know, from what you went through in July and that you're continuing into now. Because these are going to be able to support in the material developments of everything that's happening right now, right? The plans that you're making now that you see what you actually want to create and what you need to do and how you need to move and how you're going to be better and all of that, all that energy that was coming up, all that clarity as life was like showing you exactly how to position yourself, because there was a lot of emotions as well, because we were in Kepra season and the water energy was real and people was navigating that in their own ways. Now, what did that teach you? Right? Now, Tehuti also represents success in writing and literature. Right? So, I don't know if you're reading things. Like, these are all the things that you could think about in terms of how this energy comes up in the physical material world. Right? Because it's also science. It's also occult knowledge that's unknown, what's underneath the surface, what's within you, right? Have you been doing that submerging in yourself? Did you go into your emotions? Did you really honor them? Did you tap in to figure out what they were trying to show you about yourself, what you needed to see that was happening subconsciously, that was coming up to the surface? Because this energy we're in right now is very characteristic of like eclipse energy. We're not in an eclipse, but this is just such a major energy shift that's happening, and the particular alignments with which constellations and star energies are being activated. It just feels that way. It feels the same way. And it's just ushering in a very strong clearing and potential activation, right? So yeah, it also represents mediation as well. So I wanted to express that, because another aspect, because Tehuti was seen as the mediator par excellence, as they would say, right? The greatest mediator. So in terms of thinking about, right, we also had Neith on that emotional side, maybe the need for mediation within connections and relationships, or with emotions, right? Mediating your own emotions, mediating between your mind and your heart, right? Ma'at and Tehuti. Because like I mentioned earlier, when we were talking about Shishat, she's one of those consorts of Tehuti, but you also have Ma'at, who is the other, the actual complement that we usually see with Tehuti. So it moves us into the next card, which we've been talking about a lot, is Set. Set being 3. Y'all excuse my dirty nails. I'm a farmer. I was in that soil. But Ra is family of the sun. Again, like I said, this is the brother of Asar, brother of Ast, brother of Nebitet, right? It's the 3, which is still a creative energy. Now, Set is where they get this concept of Satan. Some people know it as Set-hyphen or Setesh. There's many different ways. Here they have it written as Seth, right? You see the eye of Heru overhead as well, right? Because this is the opposition energy. This is the gravity. We need gravity so we don't float away. We need gravity to strengthen us. That's why when you do those push-ups, those pull-ups, right? So there's something in terms of the materialization of this that I want to express is like, if you do physical exercise, like calisthenics with your own body weight, running, anything that moves you against gravity, weightlifting, weight training, those are all things that can greatly support you in terms of a healthy way of aligning with Set, because we're also in Set retrograde, right? Because Saturn is in retrograde, which is the energy sphere that represents Set and that Setian energy, that ego energy, that father, like, but a particular aspect of that energy, right? Because these are not just like, we shouldn't look at them as like negative or positive energies. Each represents its own thing, right? And it's necessary in its own right. And because we're in that retrograde space, we're also being taught how we need to set certain boundaries, how we're fathering ourselves, like what is our relationship to our fathers, examining the patriarchal system that we're in and this over masculinization, but not swinging the pendulum into no type of like feminism or other, like, right, we're not doing that. We're coming into center and we're honoring the complementarity of both energies and the fact that we need them to be in balance. We need them to be symmetrical, side by side, and in support of one another, which is what we're moving into, which is a beautiful thing for us as a collective Black spirit, preparing for our resurrection, because that's what the resurrection of Asar represents. That's what the resurrection of Bennu represents. But remember, it happens to us as individuals, and then that takes place in the macrocosm as well. So what happens to each grain of sand on the beach? Eventually you'll see the whole beach, right? Reflect that. So yes, this is what Set represents. Now you can definitely see it's got a lot of that red energy. Heru is also represented as the red, which is the son of Ast and Asar, right? That immaculate birth, which they kind of fused both Asar and Heru when they created the Jesus concept. Now, Heru has to go battle his uncle, Set, and takes the throne. And when he overpowers him and he's about to kill him, his mother, As, stops him from doing that. That was another aspect of how the mythology fuses together that I do think is very significant. Now, Set, I feel, it just shows that we're going to have opportunities to strengthen ourselves. We really have to show we have dominion over our egos. That's going to be very significant because we're going to be tested, period. So you have to really strengthen your higher self in order to move beyond your ego expression. Yes, it's necessary. We need it, but keep it in its proper place. Put it in its proper place. It can't be on the throne. It can't be ruling the kingdom. Like, nah. So that's what this represents. This also represents opposition, strife. And the best way to look at this in the material sense is, because the divinatory meaning is also retreat is preferable to defeat. Don't be in your ego trying to like go at things when you need to just retreat. You got to be clear on what you're dealing with in your life, which is why you have to take everything else that we went over into consideration and use this opportunity to connect with yourself more deeply, to really process these things, to really nurture yourself, so that you can have that proper assessment. Because we also have the Shishat, the Tehuti energy, right? Wanting us to use our intellect, right? In order to move us past any emotional triggers and like vulnerabilities that are trying to like allow certain entities and energies to have access to us, right? So that's going to require that you have those proper evaluations and know when you need to just retreat, right? And the next card is Ra, beautifully enough. I love this reading. It's so powerful. Another 3 card, just like the Set, creative energy, pet, family of the heavens, right? And you can just look into it, what Ra symbolism represents. You have the Herube Hutet, which is at the top of every temple. That's the symbol up here, where you have the solar disk, you have the cobras, you have the falcon wings, representing divine protection, the light of Ra shining on the darkness. This is pure creative energy. So because this is our material realm, right? The earth at the base is the energy that we're moving into of creative power and manifestation, to put the effort to creating what it is that we're now seeing as our infinite potential and possibility. And we can do that. Like, we can actually do it. That's the energy that's here. Ra is here to shine. So if we tap into that energy, and I feel like materially, one of the ways I always feel is important is to align yourself with the sun, align yourself with Ra. So that means you honor the cycles, the natural cycles that are happening right now. You honor the sun, and you get in that solar energy, that vitamin D. D3, get activated, take in these light codes, because there's a high activation of our central nervous system right now. And we forget a lot of times that our eyes are a part of that. Our eyes are the only part of our central nervous system that's outward facing, and the only part that actually pulls in and interprets that light code. So sun gazing, make sure you follow your spirit and do what you know feels good for you, because I don't want you to hurt yourself. But it has to be early, early hours, or when Ra's going to rest, right? But you want to tune in and tap into this solar power energy. This is representing success, right? The energies, the inspiration, the clarity, the elevation that's coming forward, the plans you're making will be successful. And you're going to overcome those obstacles, and you're going to overcome the danger. So even though I mentioned that there was strife with Set, Ra shows that, we're going to overcome. Because in the mythology, Heru and Set, because Ah stops him from killing his uncle, Set, right? So you have the levity and the gravity, which I told you we have to have both, right? That's what creates equilibrium. Now, when they come together, because she doesn't let him defeat it, because she told her son, he is necessary. You can't destroy him, or you destroy everything. You destroy the order of the universe, right? So he doesn't kill him, and they end up having to come together in Smai Tawi, the union of the two regions, right? And both the levity and the gravity come together to defeat the ultimate enemy of Ra, right? Which is Apep, the unnecessary evil, the evil that must be destroyed and purged, right? So energetically, that's what we're experiencing on the planet. There's a lot of chaos and disorder, but there's a certain aspect of the gravity and the evil and the systems that stand that can be transitioned into this elevated, new, risen, healed paradigm that we're entering into, right? That we're rising into. And that's going to complete itself in this particular moon cycle with this energy, Afneteru, which is the Mesu Heru, the children of Heru, the 4 children of Heru, which obviously the number is 4, representing stability, the 4 corners, the 4 cardinal points, north, south, east, west, the 4 elements, earth, water, air, fire, right? And these being like pillar points for construction. You could also think back to that Shashat energy that I mentioned before. She's the builder, the architect, the construction of plans. The stability is coming with this support. So the stability for us to do what we're moving towards in terms of rising and activating our full potential, the support is coming in. So everything we move through in this cycle is eventually going to bring forward the support that we need in order to get there. And what Mesu Heru represents is the 4 children of Heru, which many people know as the canopic jars. And the canopic jars are the jars that have the lungs, the intestines, the stomach, the liver, and are buried with our ancestors in the tombs, right? And these four children of Heru represent the accountability that we have to our physical experience. So I do also want you to think of that, because we're accountable to the state of out in the conditions of our body when we transition. So this, in a material sense, is looking at how your body, how you're treating your body. What is the state of your liver, of your intestines, of your lungs, right? And how can you honor and support those systems in your body? That's a way that you can honor and align with and embody these energies, for sure. Each one has a different symbolism to it in terms of the different keepers or protectors of the different organs. But in terms of its divinatory meaning, right, you can intuit whatever comes up for you personally as well with the symbolism. But it's help and direction that's given. It's also about conservation, conserving your energy, conserving and protecting yourself, your body. So protection, as I said. And it's the preparation for a new phase in life, because everything is about to change. When we say you can rise into your full potential, that means all that stuff that was shed, like that's all gone. This is a whole new phase and stage of life that we're now entering into. Not only us as individuals, but this entire planet is rising. And this particular moon cycle it's a climax point of like, we're moving into the other side. We're really rising into now like our time. And that means we have to do what we are here to do. So you being here right now and you staying all the way through to this point, I know that you are a warrior spirit. Now, these full readings are usually present, and I usually contain a lot of the wisdom that I have to keep sacred within the house of the Tehuti Ma'at Militia. If you are not a member of the Tehuti Ma'at Militia, I want to encourage you to join the militia if you feel called to, because that is also the support that you need. Because this is a war that we're in. And to be called as a protector and as a servant to the people, as a leader, if that is what you are here to do, then this is the leaderful movement. And this is the way that we take spiritual authority in order to come into the fullness of our healing, right? Tehuti Ma'at is a resource mechanism. So all of the things within the militia that are used to support you in your healing journey, as we define revolution as healing, liberation, restoration, elevation, and expansion. And this is the process that we are unfolding into as we are constantly revolving in this solar system. And I want to encourage you to join. So the link is in the bio. If you're interested in doing your own reading, I also do a reading with a different type of deck that's more so focused on other symbolism, particularly through the mothering feminine energies. And that is a goddess reading in particular, but I can also do a full Makut reading if you want to do less cards. But because this is a significant moment that we're in, a lot of people may want that type of oracle divination to support in their internal journey. So that's the intention. It's all about activating your own power and your own intuition. So it's not an external thing, but these tools and being able to activate the wisdom of the energies that are aligned for this work and to support this work. Feel free to book a reading if that's something you're interested in. Stay tuned for a very, very powerful shift in energy and a very activated and creatively stimulating and inspiring rebirthing process that you are already in right now. So take care, travel light, and I'll see you next time. Power.